Hey everybody, Matt Johnson here. New details in the alleged ransom notes in the Nancy Guthrie case.
2 notes sent to media outlets from an alleged kidnapper following the 84-year-old's disappearance indicated that Nancy had died.
And then a few days after the kidnapping, he said, time is no longer of the essence.
And then what the reports were confirming earlier today, that she was buried with nature.
In this note, 2 words that stuck out to me was the word perish, and the second one is nature.
That's Homicide Detective Chris McDonough, who just completed a boots-on-the-ground investigation outside of Nancy's house in Tucson, Arizona.
In this particular note, there's this idea that the suspect is trying to project some type of empathy. Okay. Well, that's typically not a correlated behavior to an individual who goes at 2:30 in the morning and abducts an 84-year-old woman out of the house in violence.
He's going to help break down the language in the notes and new clues that might have been overlooked by the investigators. But first, do me a favor, hit the like and subscribe. Maybe share this YouTube channel with your friends. Now, the case of missing Nancy Guthrie. Major developments in the case, and here to help break it all down, we have a very special guest. We have Chris McDonough, homicide detective with Cold Case Foundation, host of one of my favorite programs. I have all the information in my show notes, The Interview Room on YouTube, and you run that with your wife, Karen. You're both fantastic people. I had the pleasure of meeting you both at CrimeCon, but we're talking about Nancy Guthrie, and we're talking about the latest information involving the ransom note, the second ransom note, which was days after Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. And it indicates, we're hearing details that it indicates that she had died, but it's not requesting any payment for release of her body. Thank you for being on the program. What's your initial thoughts?
Well, the initial thought, and thank you so much, Matt, for having me. The initial feeling that I get out of this ransom note, where the suspect has sent it early on into this investigation, there's 2 questions that have to be asked here from an investigative analysis aspect. The first one is this something that's connected, to somebody who's just trying to torment the family? Okay. Meaning, are they really involved in the abduction of Nancy? And so that's the first question that the authorities would want to answer. We don't have those answers right now. What we have is, it looks like there's a similar IP address where they were sent from. And in this particular note, there's this idea that the suspect is trying to project some type of empathy. Okay. Well, that's typically not a correlated behavior to an individual who goes at 2:30 in the morning and abducts an 84-year-old woman out of the house in violence. And how do we know that? Because obviously her blood is on the front porch. So you have to take this and ask yourself, okay, how do we make the correlation and the connection to this note, to this house in any way, shape, or form? Just because somebody gives generalized information in a note, we can look at this guy in Los Angeles and say, okay, well, here's a guy that just interjected himself into one of the largest, kidnapping cases in the country. What's his motivation? And the FBI was on him quickly. So we have to take this, very carefully. You have to take it seriously, but simultaneously, you have to make sure that you're in the right lane and you're actually dealing with the perpetrator, not somebody else who's just trying to, benefit off of the suffering of the family.
I'm going to put the Today Show report about this, and this was published on June 23rd, 2026. And then I'm going to pause it to get your reaction before we hear Savannah actually comment on it from the news desk, which is unusual. But Here it goes.
The existence of this note had already been known and reported on, but now for the first time, we're learning and sharing the contents of that letter, which prompted an emotional message at the time from Savannah and her family to her mom's alleged kidnapper. This morning, new details coming out regarding the ongoing investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. According to 3 people familiar with the matter, the second of 2 notes sent to media outlets from an alleged kidnapper following the 84-year-old's disappearance indicated that Nancy had died. The note made no further request for money. Shortly after it was sent, Savannah and her siblings sharing this video, speaking directly to whoever took their beloved mom.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
That second note coming days after media outlets received an initial alleged ransom note indicating that Nancy was safe and demanding $6 million in Bitcoin in exchange for her release. NBC News has previously reported on both notes, but the contents of that second note have not been made public until now. Investigators involved in the case believe the notes are potentially credible, a sentiment shared by Savannah during her interview with Hoda.
I believe the 2 notes that we received, that we responded to, I tend to believe those are real.
All right, I'm going to pause it right there. So getting back to your initial thoughts as an investigator on this, are you surprised that the news outlets feel comfortable about releasing the information now? And why didn't they just do it then?
Yeah, that is a great question. And it's because that tells us when they got the second note that there was a clear indication that their mom was no longer with us. And as a result of that, you have to ask yourself, okay, well, if the family knew that and the authorities knew that, then what is the purpose of the secondary types of behaviors that you see after that? Meaning coming down the walkway with a note and all this other stuff and walking to the memorial and, putting that out into the public as if there was, a sentiment of hope that was being projected and a sentiment of unity in the family dynamics there when the family already knew their mom was deceased. Okay. Now, I'm not being critical of the family. I'm just asking, like you're asking, well, what was the purpose of that? Because if the perpetrator is watching that and he's going, well, maybe I didn't get the message clear enough to the family because here they're coming down and, they're putting flowers and letters to my mom, i.e. the card. What's going on here? Maybe I'm not doing what I need to do as the suspect in this thing. And so you always have to look through the eyes of the perpetrator, not necessarily through the eyes of the emotion of the family. And that's why it's important, for investigators to always remember that you have to separate this emotional impact to the family because it's clear Savannah has been suffering from day one. There's no question about it. She's not involved. There's no indication in any way, shape, or form that Savannah Guthrie or Cameron or the situation there in any way that they're involved in their mother's disappearance. So now you have to ask this question, okay, well, are there other circle of influences that potentially could be? Okay. And when I just spent a week in Tucson, okay, on the ground. I went to the house, I went to the neighborhood, I went to all of the other circumstances around that. And I am convinced this suspect or these individuals, from my frame of reference at this point with what I've learned, that this individual is local. They are not far from this. Evidence, of the fact that note in of itself was sent to a local news agency. Okay. Why didn't this person send it directly to the family like the guy did in Hawthorne? Now that's an anomaly here. If we think about the gentleman in Hawthorne who sent the text messages to 2 family members, well, why doesn't this note writer do the same thing and send it directly to the family? No, they circumvented the family and they sent it directly to one of the news agencies down there. And then when that wasn't good enough, they sent it out, to TMZ to get more attention. So this is an intentional act by this suspect to either one, pull you away from this house and Tucson, or two, okay, all this person's trying to do is torture the family. And here we are 5 months later, and Savannah Guthrie is still in that depth of pain, and she's projecting it to the world. Okay? So you can bet that suspect watched that family walk down that driveway right there, arm in arm, and put their items of memorial to their mother out front with a full intention that he knew he had told them, your mom's not here with us anymore. So, that's kind of deviant in of itself from a suspect's perspective to potentially have been watching that during this time.
Do you think that the family knew all the contents in these various notes? Savannah had mentioned the notes during her interview with Hoda Kotb.
Yeah, well, in her plea to the suspect, it sounds like she's asking for her mom's remains. Mm-hmm. And so I would submit to you, yeah, she had a clear understanding that her mom was no longer with us. And that pain in of itself, you can only imagine, we all know what that feels like. Okay. And so, yeah, I believe that Savannah knew, and that's why she was, so adamant to say, look, I believe both of these notes are real. And so I think there was a little hesitation on the law enforcement side early on, whether or not that's been validated other than outside of learning that they came from the same IP address. There's still, I think, more information that needs to be had and more questions that need to be answered.
Because also what's so unusual about it is Savannah is watching it unfold on the news set. So she's sitting on the news set as her co-anchor is reading the headlines and tossing to the reporter in California. She's in New York. And just the amount of pain that you see when they come to her, and she makes no real comment about it, but she does the traditional thing that any family that wants answers will do. They'll get in front of the cameras and they'll plea once again. So she does that from her job, and it's just so gut-wrenching. And I wanted to play that for you and for the viewer right now.
Yeah, Liz, thank you. The bravery and courage with which you have done this job every day since that happened, nothing short of remarkable.
Well,
nothing short of remarkable.
I love you guys, and I love this place, and this is unusual and unprecedented, to say the least, to be sitting here. But, I don't have any comment on the story, and I'm not involved in our coverage, but I can't pretend I'm not here. And so since I am, I wanted to just take the opportunity to ask people, to beg people to come forward. Somebody knows something. And this is a news story today that is on your radar, but this is the life that my sister lives, that I live, that my brother lives, that our extended families live, that our children live every day. And we are in agony. And we cannot be at peace. So no matter how much I try to come out here every day and smile and find that joy, and I will, I promise I will. This is a moment to tell you that we need your help. We're begging for your help. And I'm not going to miss that opportunity. And so please, if you're watching,
yes,
no matter how small, the reward is there. You can tell us. It can be anonymous. Please do the right thing for us, for our family, for our children. And we love our mom, and we'll never stop looking for her. Never.
To your point, if you have any information, if you're watching, if you're listening, if you have any information at all.
Okay, so that's so unique because at that moment, she's a guest on the show. She's not the anchor. She's a guest talking about her missing mom and doing any sort of interview that we would do when we're doing a missing persons case, right? But what's interesting to me that I picked up on is she's still making sure that the public realizes that they are a combined family unit. They're still together because she mentions her sister and her brother-in-law and her brother as a family, right? And then, she makes that plea again. What stood out to you?
Well, my sense there is that she's doing a balancing act. that she's trying to keep her job, meaning, she's trying to project to the producers and all the people behind the scenes at NBC that says, look, how much longer can she hang on here emotionally, okay, with her mom missing? And then the second thing is she's trying to project, and she is projecting that, look, to your point, that we're organized as a family and we're all suffering.
And speaking of the news agencies, so we had mentioned that a few of them received different ransom notes, alleged ransom notes. A former reporter in Arizona, Brianna Whitney, is now the breaking true crime reporter for Crime Junkie. She posted this within the past 48 hours, talking about the note that she knows about, and I wanted to play it.
You are probably seeing some reports surfacing this afternoon about the second Nancy Guthrie ransom note. Some media confirming that it said Nancy died and that she was buried in nature. I'm Brianna Whitney, Crime Junkie's breaking news reporter, and I have spent months and months covering the Nancy Guthrie case, boots on the ground. And in my former role, before I came to Crime Junkie, I was made aware of what these ransom notes said as I was reporting on the case. I've seen them with my own eyes, so I want to actually provide more context as to what that second note said. The way that this note was written, it's written as we, like we didn't know this, as if it was some sort of team or whoever was involved in this. It said, we did not fully grasp the seriousness of her physical condition. It went on to say that they never intended to hurt her during all of this. They continued and said she perished shortly after she was taken. They believe that it was heart related. And then what the reports were confirming earlier today, that she was buried with nature. And maybe the most important part of the second ransom note, it said, nothing you could have done could have changed the outcome. We are truly sorry. So that's what I know from my reporting on this case. And that second note came in the first week of the investigation. Now, the FBI never came out and confirmed whether or not these ransom notes are legit. We knew that they were investigating them, but months have gone by. They never confirmed more. But we do know that Savannah Guthrie said she believes that these two notes are real. We will keep you up to date on the Nancy Guthrie investigation.
But what sticks out to me about that report is we.
Yeah, and does it sound like an individual that would go into an 84-year-old woman's house at 2:30 in the morning after surveilling it for so many nights and planning this whole thing out, and then use extreme violence to punch her, to pull her out? It almost sounds like he or she is trying to be empathetic, okay, to the totality of taking Nancy Guthrie, okay? And it's almost like, okay, wait a minute, let me get this right. This guy has kidnapped this woman, okay? And he's trying to say, we did not understand, the totality of her health condition, okay? Well, number one, she's 84 years old. You knew what you were targeting. Number two, you took a gun and you were prepared to use violence up to deadly force with this 84-year-old woman. And then in this note, two words that stuck out to me was the word perish, okay? And the second one is nature, okay? And, first of all, what career criminal uses the word perish? Your mom perished. There's nothing you could have done, okay? Well, career criminals don't talk like that.
Who does?
Okay? Well, somebody a little bit more sophisticated, somebody that has, this idea that they have writing skill, communication skill. So you have to step back and say, okay, this is not your average everyday person that's hanging out at Estefan Park. Okay. However, could this be a contact for somebody like that who has some type of sophistication, who may have spent a long time in prison? Is this a career criminal? What we used to call three strikers. Okay. Well, three strikers read a lot of books. Okay. When they've spent, 15 or 25 years of their 40 years in prison. Okay. And
it's also a California term because we have the three strikes law.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so you have to say, okay, well, wait a minute. I've yet to find a career criminal that says, she's with nature now. Okay. Is it possible? Of course, anything is possible. Okay. But this individual, he's buying his stuff at Walmart. Okay. He's buying a backpack. This pistol, the way he's holding the pistol is very unsophisticated. Number one, it's backwards. Okay. So either he's right hand, you notice the pistol grip is focused on his right hand, not his left hand, but he's using his left hand as a dominant hand. So is he right-handed or is he left-handed? Because if he's left-handed, he doesn't know how to use a gun because it's backwards. And secondarily, the holster that he's using is the wrong type of holster for that type of gun. So this is kind of a very unsophisticated, circumstance for this guy. Okay, so as Dr. Picotto and myself and others on our panel have discussed, is this guy just a waiter? Okay, and there's a chef behind the curtain somewhere, okay, who is kind of directing things, and this kind of letter is a perfect example of that. There's nothing you could have done. We didn't realize, so there's more than one. And what I've said that from the beginning, okay, we didn't realize that, your mom's health condition. Well, why are you projecting us back to the family? Okay, so you weren't serious about the ransom? Okay, you were more concerned with her health concerns, or was this a situation where you realized that every single day she had to take her medication at a certain time every single night, and the first thing the sheriff said when he came out on the very first briefings, she needs that medication within 24 hours, or it could be life-threatening. Okay, is that where they got that messaging from the sheriff? Okay, because I can tell you this, I've talked to many I've talked to killers who have told me, yeah, I just watched the press conferences. So this kind of language that they're projecting out there about them being empathetic could, potentially be more of maybe dodging the circumstance versus this is the actual voice of the suspect.
So what we've picked up in that report is the language that sticks out to you, and also about we and perished. And I never really thought about that, but you're right. It's either an educated person or someone that uses words in that way. So now we have
the word nature.
And nature, you're right, nature. And now we have TMZ that received allegedly a few notes. And here is Harvey Levin. He posted about it. So here it is.
Some communications I've had with the FBI that I haven't talked about until now. But I want to start with these reports that this ransom letter that we received kind of apologizes to Savannah Guthrie and her family for the kidnapping, and that Nancy was no longer alive. That was not in the ransom note that we received. It is not in that ransom note at all. It does say that she's scared, but okay. But the ransom note makes no reference to Nancy Guthrie either dying or the kidnappers apologizing. Now, there is a reference to Nancy Guthrie not being alive anymore, but that is from the person who sent us multiple emails saying that he knows or knew where Nancy Guthrie was and where the kidnappers were, and he wanted money in return for information. We passed that along to the FBI as we did the ransom note, but this person kept sending us emails, and early on he said time is of the essence, and then a few days after the kidnapping he said time is no longer of the essence, meaning she wasn't alive. So that's where that came from, not the people who kidnapped her, but from the person who was sending us these notes. Now, that person wanted effectively $100,000. He actually reduced it.
I'm going to just pause it right there because that was a lot. It sounds like he's talking about several different notes there.
Yeah, and it sounds like this individual, again, is trying to insert themselves into, the largest kidnapping case since the Lindbergh baby. Remember the old, hey, congratulations, your family member has left you $1 million in Nigeria. Okay, and if you give me your bank account, I'll make sure that we directly put it in there. Okay, so again, that one could be potentially noise. Okay, and Harvey Levin there is saying, but it was kind of confusing because he's saying that she's okay, she's fine, but then the other ones are like, well, we're apologizing maybe, but she's still alive. And et cetera, et cetera. So is this just noise, from somebody who's, again, just trying to interject themselves or hurt the family, through that, by doing that? I find the most bizarre piece of this, note situation, sending it, number one, to an entertainment media agency and not directly to the family. So it's almost like it has to go through, a couple of different, gates to get to Savannah, Annie, and Cameron. Why not, if you have their mother and you're worried about their mother, i.e. you're the suspect, and you want them to know, I have your mother, okay? And let me tell you this, I want this, this, and this, okay? And I'll return your mom, okay? That's how typically these individuals would operate. Okay, whereas in this situation, the suspect's sending a note to a news agency, the apology one, for an example, okay, that Brianna just talked about, and says, "Hey, we didn't know, how bad, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, we'll still take this amount in Bitcoin or whatever, the ransom demand was going to be." But why not do that directly with the family? And that was one of the first one of the first press conferences that the FBI wanted to have with the family, where they had them read, some of that messaging saying, look, we need proof of life that Nancy's there. Okay. And once we get that proof of life, now we can start communicating about how we get her back. Okay? And that's just a hostage negotiations technique that is just standard across, every law enforcement agency in the world. You don't negotiate with people for other people, because once you pay them, okay, then at that point, they're all bets are off. They can eliminate the suspects and they've got their money, or the victim, and they've got their money, and they keep moving. Okay. And so you never, ever pay anything up front, ever, until you know for sure that she or he is alive. And in this case, that never came to fruition. That never happened. And so the FBI, rightfully said, look, we can't tell the family what to do, because they can't. Okay. If the family wants to pay a ransom note, they can. Okay. That's up to them. But law enforcement will advise them, look, you don't want to do that, because once you do that, now you've actually put your mom in danger. You've put the victim in danger. It's like at a bank robbery. Okay. If the guy says, yeah, I want this, I want that, I want this. Okay. The moment you give them something, you had better get something in return. And I was a hostage negotiator for 11 years on my agency. Okay. And I talked a father out of 4 kids in a car one time. Okay? And how did we do it? 1 bullet at a time in a gun. Do you want water? Yes, no problem. Give me a bullet. And then we'd send in a bottle of water. Okay. Et cetera, et cetera. And then it got down to, give me the magazine. Okay. Give me one of your children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, we were successful in doing that, but it was a trade. It's a trade. Okay. So the moment you say, or the moment the person says, I'm going to kill my entire family, i.e. the victims here, unless I talk to Joni, the moment you put Joni up there and she says, stop, you need to come out. He says, Joni, I love you. You made me do this. Boom, it's over. Okay. And he takes the whole family out. And this is the same circumstance. So those are the premises that the FBI was working under, saying, look, we need proof of life that she's out there. Okay? Just don't start putting, money on the $4 million, because that was the first Bitcoin request. Don't put $4 million into an account when we don't even know if these are the right people that may have your mom.
Yeah, I think that's why there's so much criticism with the sheriff and, what was happening in those initial days, weeks, hours. The questions about whether or not the FBI was shut out of all of this, as Kash Patel has indicated. And I think that it also goes to why Savannah in her posts, why she, was really trying to appeal to someone's, conscience, because maybe she was thinking in these notes that there was, a co-conspirator that would have flipped and given them information. Because, in this post, for instance, she's talking about it's never too late. God is with you. I'm with you. I know that it's difficult. You can do this, that sort of thing. Where is Nancy? Do you believe that she could be in Mexico, like the other headline that's been swirling around?
I don't. I think she's somewhere in that desert area around Tucson. I really believe that at this point, in my belief, is unfortunately she's not with us, even though the note, is saying she's not with us. I think her demise was within 24 to 48 hours, and I think we even talked about that the last time, I was on your program. And so from this point, from that point forward, now it's a cover play for the suspect, whoever the individuals are, because they already realized, okay, we now have another problem. And one of the things perpetrators don't typically think through is the fact that once somebody is deceased, now they have to move that body. And that body now becomes, 150 pounds of concrete. Okay? And what are we going to do with it? How are we going to move it? So now, as an investigator, you're looking for secondary crime scenes. And that is cars, methods of transportation, of moving the body. You're looking also now, where was that individual held and contained until she died? Because she was taken out of that car, out of that house. So you've got the house as a crime scene. You've got the method of transportation to remove her out of that house. That's a crime scene. Okay? You've got the area that they took her to write the notes. Number one, there has to be access to a computer somewhere. So it's probably, either a public environment, maybe it's a Starbucks, maybe it's something where they're tapping into Wi-Fi somewhere to send these notes to get an IP address. Okay? And then, so that's a crime scene. You got to try to identify where could this suspect be sitting. Perhaps they're sitting at the local Starbucks and sending these notes. Okay. And then once you get that, you have to ask yourself, well, if they're doing that in a public place and not at a home or a controlled environment, then who's watching the victim if she's still alive at that point? And once that victim passes away, now you have another problem. How do we get her out of this house without being seen? Okay. And what are we going to use to move her? Okay. Are we going to use the same car we kidnapped her in? Okay. And if so, maybe this neighborhood now has video cameras that can see us taking her out of the house. Okay. That's not a good thing for them. But you see, they don't think this far.
This is exactly the type of analysis that you do and bring to your viewers on cases like this. You've done deep dives into the Nancy Guthrie disappearance on the interview room, and you were just there, boots on the ground. Can you tell me a little bit more about what we can find on your YouTube channel with your recent investigation?
Well, I've, and thank you for asking that. Tonight we're going to have another expert panel on, folks that have been doing this a very long time. I've got, Dan Stover, a good friend of mine. He spent over 20 plus years in Chicago in homicide. Of course, Dr. Picato, who wrote the book, The New Evil. And I'm part of an organization, the Cold Case Foundation. I'm the director of law enforcement investigations and relationships. So some of the cases come through me, and then we put together teams to help agencies. We actively work with law enforcement agencies through things like this when cases have gone cold. And we help them regenerate thought process, thinking outside of the box, for lack of a better term, by bringing 200 experts to the table. And our approach is the Mayo approach. So we get an agency, they bring a case, they debrief us on the case, and we have a video board set up through modern technology, typically through Zoom. And let's say somebody needs forensic experts, right? We bring forensic experts in on the Zoom meeting, and they say, well, have you guys thought about this, this, and this? They go through the evidence with them, and then they say, hey, wait a minute, did you test the mat that's sitting on the porch? Oh, no, we didn't see the mat. Okay, well, we think, you should probably do A, B, C, or D. And those are the kind of things we bring to the table. And we've got everything from access to a lab to cellular processing, the whole gamut. We have over 200 experts that we have access to, and we've been very successful behind the scenes, helping agencies continue to solve their cases.
That's just fascinating. Again, the YouTube channel is The Interview Room, and you work on that with your wife. Great guy. You're a successful investigator. Chris McDonough, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Matt.
If you have any information in the case, please call 1-800-CALL-FBI. You can remain anonymous, and there is still those cash rewards. Let's keep Savannah Guthrie and her family in our thoughts and prayers. Hopefully, they can get some answers soon. In the meantime, I'll keep you updated on this case. So please hit the like and subscribe, and maybe share this episode. Take care of yourself. I'll see you next time.